My guest today is Melissa Deely. She's an integrative health practitioner and health coach. She is from Canada, and I have had the honor of meeting her several months ago. And I couldn't stop talking to her and asking questions. And she has such a wealth of information to share that I could probably really talk to her all week long. And I still wouldn't have all the information that she has to share with us. So today, I would like her to tell us a little about herself and what is an integrative health practitioner, because that was a new profession for me until I met Melissa. So Melissa Deely, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself to my audience?
Happy to, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, Elizabeth. So I too am a mother of two girls. They're 18 and 22, and I live in the beautiful Whistler, British Columbia. And my journey to being an integrative health practitioner hasn't necessarily been the norm. I was in the corporate world for 24 years until 5 years ago, I got laid off when big fish bought little fish and said goodbye. And that was a blessing in disguise. It was the kick in the pants I needed to do something different. And I had no idea what that would be, but I was absolutely guided here through my own two daughters having concussions at almost the same time. And one of them in the house is hard enough, let alone two. And I realized that I had a passion for guiding their healing journey and wondered what other people did that didn't have a mom that happened to be out of work and had the time to go to all the appointments. And I also had discovered nutrition for the brain. And so I kind of had my own little lab of bringing this nutritional piece to their recovery. And luckily, they both fully recovered, so don't worry about that. But it started my own journey to A, helping other people, and B, going back to school. So over the past 5 years, I have gone back to school and got my health coaching certification, done some transformational mastery coaching certifications, and then found integrative health practitioner certification. And what that is, as you say, it's very new. Definitely 100% on the holistic side, looking at natural herbs and supplements for helping people heal. But what we're trying to do is find the root cause for whatever is going on, and then bring the body back into balance as we discover the deficiencies and how to support the body, as well as the toxicities, which is a piece that most people are not talking about. But in our world today, we are bombarded by toxins with over 100,000 man-made toxins in the environment. And our human body is very slow to evolve since the beginning of time. And it's just not developed to a point where it can handle that. And so our liver and kidneys get bogged down, toxins get stuck inside our body that aren't supposed to be there. And this sends signals to trigger inflammation and disease. And the scary piece as well is there's a movie called 10 Americans. It's put out by the Environmental Working Group. And it's a study of 10 babies, and they researched the toxicity level of the baby's umbilical cords. And they only tested for 400 of those 100,000 man-made chemicals. And the average baby had over 250 toxins that mom's body couldn't prevent getting through the placenta to the baby. And that's the state of the world we live in today. And so it's my passion and mission to help people become more proactive in their health, but also help them heal from chronic illness, which again, the world is the sickest it's ever been. And we're struggling with all this chronic illness, and mainstream medicine doesn't know what to do with it. And on the holistic side, when we look for the root cause, when we remove the toxicities, we are able to support the body to bring it back into balance, at which point it will heal itself. That's the beautiful thing. The body is designed to heal itself, just like it does a broken arm or a cut finger. But sometimes it needs a little help getting back to that place from which it can heal itself.
Wow, you covered so many things that I want to ask you about 100 questions right now. When you said about toxicity, and I think that really resonated with me, because in my pursuit of trying natural things to help my children, I had them tested for toxins, and they did come up as having mercury. And, that's mercury and heavy metals was the other one. And I was working with a chiropractor at the time, and he gave me some things to help detoxify. But it scared me because, we're helping our kids to get rid of these toxins, but sometimes you're pulling it from one area of the body, and does it go into another? Does that make sense? So, and with children with autism, I know chelation was very popular for a while until there were a couple children that it didn't work so well with. So, what would you suggest for parents like us who are on board and we just want to see our kids healthy and want to start that detoxification process naturally? Now, I know it's best to get tested, obviously, to see before and after, but if we were going to start, what would be the best thing to do naturally for our kids?
So it's interesting. You can get tested, but we don't actually have kids do a full detox like we do adults. So we want the child to be at least 16 and kind of adult body size before we would have them do a full liver and kidney detox. For that fact is their little bodies are not fully developed yet, and we just need to be more careful when working with children versus working with adults. And we are hoping their toxic load isn't as high as it is for an adult, for instance. And so when working with children, I actually work with, a couple of different supplement companies. And for the detox program that I do, the best one that I found is through a company called Equi.life. And maybe we can drop the link to that actual program in afterwards. And what we do for kids is we don't put them onto the Ayurvedic herbs because they're too tough on their little bodies, but we do have them take the meal replacement shake on a daily basis, which has a very mild dose of the detoxifying supplements, as well as giving them all the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that their body needs in any given day. And that particular product, I've researched many different meal replacement shakes, and that particular one is my number one choice because when I start to look at the ingredients in the product, they're all the same ingredients, except that the other shakes have only 10% of the amount. And so this particular product just has a much higher quality and quantity of product in it. And yet the price point is the same. And the others are all from network marketing companies. And I think the idea of their shakes are as a meal replacement shake where you have it for breakfast, but you have other meals during the day. Whereas on the detox program, there's a couple of days where we just have that and no food. And so in order to feel good as you go through those 2 fasting days, you need to get that high level of vitamins, minerals, and nutrients for the body to A, feel satiated, and B, still be able to function. So that's one recommendation, that anybody can go and buy that particular product. I think it's $39.95 US. It's not an exorbitant amount of money. And start with a half dose for your children and work up to a full dose. But the other thing that can be done on maybe a quarterly basis is we put our body into autophagy. And we can do this for kids with this particular product. And what autophagy is it's from Ayurvedic medicine, where they still detox to this day. It's the putting your body into a state where it doesn't have to go into digestion mode, and it's just in what I call house cleaning mode. And I literally think of it as our little cleaners coming out and sweeping out our entire intestinal tract, because toxins do get caked inside there. And when we stop digestion for long enough, our body can go into autophagy. And in fact, the sound of gurgling in our stomach? We all equate that to, oh, my stomach's gurgling, I'm hungry. What it really is it's the sound of your cleaners coming out and doing work. So yes, you might be hungry because it's an indication that you haven't eaten for perhaps 3.5 to 4 hours, and your body's in cleaning mode and not digestion mode. So doing this for an extended period, for instance, 24 to 48 hours, allows the body to deep clean. So what I do with my detox program that I take clients through is we start off each week with 2 days of just having these meal replacement shakes 4 times a day, every 3.5 to 4 hours, and allowing the body to clean. So that's something else that people can do easily at home. And kids are able to do that as well using that product.
That's such great advice. That's one of the things I feel, especially with my kiddos. I understand when I look at eating greens, I know greens, I look at green foods as the cleaners. And
Yeah.
those are the ones that basically go through and clean your system, where the breads and the cheeses and everything else are the ones who sort of bog it down.
Yes.
And so for parents who really battle getting our kids to eat leafy greens and things like that, this sounds like a wonderful supplement to make sure our kids are getting the nutrients they need. And some of the approaches I found is almost like mega doses of vitamin B12. That's often recommended. Zinc, which makes sense for increasing immunity system. One of the other things I've done with my children is cilantro,
Yes.
because I heard cilantro is also a binding herb that can help.
Yes. And so cilantro is actually part of our heavy metal detox protocol that we use with adults. And so it is very good. I love cilantro. But again, if it's hard to get your kids to eat it, then, you can do the autophagy 2 days of fasting, or maybe you have your kids try both. Would you rather just have this supplement and liquid diet for 2 days, or will you eat your broccoli and your cilantro and your greens and give them a little bit of a choice in it and see what works for them? Yeah.
I like that, because I find my kids, when they take ownership of it and they decide, it is so much easier to carry through than if I'm telling them we're doing this.
100%, 100%.
Great.
And it's so fascinating, the human body, and it's being designed to heal. It starts feeling better so quickly, right? And even though we're only doing autophagy for 2 days, they might notice the difference at the end of those 2 days and feel better. And then next time, it may not, it might be them asking to do it.
As far as the fasting, I think it's so interesting, because I know from my kids, when they're sick and they're not eating for 2 or 3 days, the clarity and their behaviors, they're another kid. And I think a lot of parents also have said that they just don't understand. My kid has all these issues and behaviors, but when they're sick, they don't have a lot of the issues that they have normally. And I always thought it was because the immune system was acting in overdrive because of whatever they're fighting, that maybe that was helping with inflammation or other things that are normally going on with our kiddos. But do you think that is why? Because they are fasting and the digestive system is cleaning?
Potentially, I'm not a scientist or a doctor that has studied that specific thing, but potentially, because when that digestive system, a healthy digestive system, uses 30% of our energy as well, right? And when that digestive system is bogged down because food's going in that it doesn't like, is perhaps intolerant to, and the child doesn't realize, right? Even adults have food intolerances that they don't realize, but that does trigger inflammation and, puts the body into a state of struggling, right? And when the food isn't going in and the immune system is helping fight whatever they are struggling with, the body's working in a different area. And so the child could have more energy, and which can create the clarity, but the child can also, even though they're feeling sick, in some ways feel better as a result of having more energy.
Yeah, it just always fascinated me that my kids were always better when they were sick. It just,
Yeah,
and like I said, I'm not the only one.
that's interesting.
And yeah, but I was just trying to figure that out. But like I said, I always thought it was because of the immune system helping them, but I never thought of it as potentially the digestive system having a rest from those trigger foods, which that could be as well, or it's almost like a detox, it's
Mhm.
cleaning itself out. So all those three components, it really
Exactly.
could be a piece of it. And speaking of food intolerances,
Mhm.
most of the kiddos that I know do have intolerances. The big one is the dairy and the gluten.
Yes.
And I know my kids, we've all been tested. We all have sensitivities. And, the one thing I noticed too is when we had our food sensitivity test done, whatever my kids were eating the most of was identified as having a reaction to. And is that because the body's just reacting to whatever's coming at the most, or what do you explain about the food intolerances in our bodies and how our bodies are reacting and becoming intolerant to different foods?
Right. So we're talking predominantly autistic kids here. And
Mhm.
the latest science shows that autistic kids have 25% less variety in their gut flora than kids that don't have a diagnosis. And in the last 5 to 7 years, we've done so much learning in the area of gut flora and our microbiome, right? So this wasn't known before. It's all very, very new. And our microbiome and the health of our microbiome is so critical to our overall health. And so, one of the realms that people are now starting to dig into is what is going on in the gut that is triggering that. Now, first of all, the microbiome is handed down 4 generations on mom's side.
Before Now, can you just clarify what is microbiome? Can you
So,
just explain that?
microbiome is the scientific term for our gut flora. So, our whole intestinal tract, our small intestine, our colon, and in there we have a beautiful balance of fungi and parasites and bacteria, good and bad, that help with the breaking down of our food and assimilation or allowing the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients to get into our bloodstream. And 70% of our immune system is housed within our gut or microbiome as well. So the health of our gut impacts the health of our immune system. And it's like we have a whole little sub-colony or ecosystem within our body, that there's actually more microbes in our body than there are actual DNA, and all designed to work symbiotically together for our optimal health until something gets out of balance. And then that's when we start to struggle with food intolerances. And then that's when we want to look at the why. So, adults can have food intolerances start and they're like, well, it can't be the food. I've eaten it my whole life. But I explain to them their body's reached a tipping point, and that's often due to the toxic load or some other imbalance in the gut where, okay, the gut might have been able to tolerate it for many years before, but didn't love it, but didn't make a lot of noise or complain too much. So you didn't associate how you felt with that particular food. And very often the way you feel happens 48 to 72 hours later, by which time you don't equate it back to food. You don't even remember what you ate 2 or 3 days ago, right? And when I explain this and say your body's now reached a tipping point and we need to heal your gut, remove the foods temporarily, and then potentially retest once the gut is healed and see those food intolerances diminish significantly as a result of the gut healing. So yes, when
So that means it can be a temporary thing with taking some of the things off, because I think that's so daunting as a parent thinking, oh, how can I do this forever when I do an elimination diet? And that's good to
right.
know.
So it can be a temporary thing. And depending on the severity of the intolerance, when I work with clients, we either remove foods for 6 weeks, 12 weeks, or 6 months. So it's a 6-12-6 cycle. But
Okay.
meanwhile, we're also working on healing the gut, because very often these food intolerances are triggered by a gut that's out of balance, potentially parasites or bacterial overgrowth or yeast or fungus or mold. And when we get rid of all of that and allow the gut to heal, now the gut is back in a place where it can tolerate these foods that it couldn't tolerate before. That's not to say it's going to be able to tolerate everything, but if for people that have a lot of intolerances, it would be nice to get rid of half of them, right?
True. Now, how do you test to see, what is going on in the gut with the fungus or the bacteria, or is
So
there a test for that?
yeah, there's 2 different tests that we can do. One of them is a urine test, and that's the one that will show me bacterial overgrowth, yeast, mold, fungus. And there's another one that's a stool test, and that will show me parasites and H. pylori, which is in the stomach rather than in the gut. And once we know exactly what we're dealing with, then we provide a healing protocol, which is generally 12 weeks of killing. I don't really love the word killing, but that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Killing the pathogen. And we follow that with a cleanse to get all that debris out, because we have to make sure it's out of the body. And then another 12-week, what I call heal and seal protocol, because they do damage to the intestinal lining and can cause leaky gut, which is little tiny holes in that lining that allow pathogens to get into our bloodstream that we don't want to have there. So we need to put in some really great herbs that help that gut lining heal back up and seal. And then after doing all of that, then we would retest the food intolerances to see which foods the body just really doesn't like, because each of us are different, and culturally we can have different intolerances because, again, 4 generations back of the way we eat and the health of our microbiome, right? And which foods we now can be reintroducing. And through that time, the adult or the child are feeling so much better anyway, that they're happy with the way things are going, and very cooperative, because let's face it, we all just want to go out and feel our best, and it sucks when we don't.
I know, no, I understand, because it breaks my heart when I watch my kids just struggle, and that there's an easier way, but sometimes we don't have professionals like you who can guide us, because most of the time for us, when we are going to our doctors, very often we're doing different therapies, but no one's addressing the actual body. And myself as an occupational therapist, there's only so much I can do in a clinic setting to help rewire the nervous system so it's more organized and the kids can regulate more. But when there's internal things going on, it makes what I'm working with much harder to change and adapt. And so I think
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, we now know the brain gut connection, right? And if we stop and think about it, even as adults, if our gut doesn't feel great, we don't feel great in our brain. And if we have a headache, we don't necessarily feel great in our gut, right? And, we all grow up knowing we have a brain, but we don't realize the gut is now known as our second brain. And what we also don't realize is I consider the gut now to be our command center, because for every message from brain to gut, there's actually 9 from gut to brain. So it's
I've heard that, yeah.
And then I consider my brain the operation center. Like, it's making things happen based on the information coming from the gut. And we have hormones made in the gut. 90% of serotonin is made in the gut. Dopamine is made in the gut. Melatonin is also made in the gut. And yes, they're also made in the brain, but a lot of it's being made in the gut. And if the gut is unbalanced and not happy and not able to produce those hormones, it's very hard for us to feel happy, right? So, looking at the gut for people that are struggling with anxiety and depression is incredibly important in today's day and age, now that we know this as well. And
that's what medications do, right? And that's the thing. I feel like when parents are putting their kids on medication, and these medications are to raise the dopamine or raise the serotonin, and what you're saying is basically, let's heal the mechanism in the body that isn't releasing these chemicals instead of giving them an artificial, way of getting that.
Exactly, because unfortunately, a lot of the chemical doses take over and the body stops making it naturally as well. And then what we have is people needing to increase their dosages and doctors telling them they have to be on this for life. And that's really tough for people to hear. And I just, sometimes it may be needed, but I always want to invite people to get a second opinion and look at that functional approach of what is the root cause? Can we address that? And in doing so, do these symptoms get alleviated? And the labs that I offer are not generally offered by mainstream medicine. They're definitely functional medicine labs, and you need a holistic practitioner that has access to them in order to be able to do them. And that's just, unfortunately, the state of our broken medical system. And
someday we,
yeah.
and I know in the United States, there are several states that are requiring naturopaths and other practitioners to be licensed in the state. And that's one step towards board certifications, and then, insurances recognizing them as a health professional. And I feel now, 20 years ago, I didn't really see many natural health practitioners, where I feel it's really grown because people are tired of not getting answers.
Right.
Yeah.
And being given a drug that really masks the pain or the symptom that isn't allowing for true healing, which is what's happening with these, prescription drugs, etc. The beautiful thing too is we've come to a point, and even pre-COVID, but it's so COVID friendly, that when I work with my clients, it's 100% virtual using Zoom, and the labs get mailed to their house. They don't have to go to a clinic. They don't have to make an appointment. They just do the labs at home. They're either urine samples, or if we're looking at hormones, it's saliva. If we're looking at toxicities and mineral deficiencies, it's just a trimming of your hair at the nape of your neck. Or it's a blood spot. Prick your finger and drip drops of blood onto a card. And then you mail it back to the lab. I get the results about 4 weeks later and review them with you, and then, create the wellness protocol and guide you through that as well. So.
Oh, wow. And to me, I feel like going that path, and, I have worked with naturopaths with my children, and I will tell you, one of the things raising children with special needs, I feel there's so much money and time invested in their care.
Yeah.
We're doing different therapies, and it takes a lot. And I feel like because my kids, they're not on any medications right now, and because we've really tried different natural approaches. But I feel like if people start with you, and, while they're doing therapy, that's such a bonus, really helping not only how the child relates to the world outside of them, but now their world inside is functioning better. So they're able to adapt more to some of these therapies and really get in there, because the fog is being lifted. And there was a child I worked with way 20 years ago. I hate to admit that. And his mother was a pharmacist. And at the time, it's when the Dan protocol was becoming popular. And it's a lot of different supplements, a natural way of healing and eliminating different foods. And it was interesting because she said later on, her son had said, Mom, one day it was like a light just turned on. And, was it everything cleared out and it just wasn't impacting his mental abilities? And, did his body finally just release everything it needed to release? I don't know, but it was just fascinating that he said that. And,
well, I love that. And it shot goosebumps right through my head, throughout my body, which always happens when the truth has been said. And often, again, with kids with ADD, ADHD, autism as well, it is very often a mineral and vitamin deficiency. So they may not be getting enough, or because of the state of their gut, their body can't absorb enough of them from their food. And so when we are able to get them to a point where their mineral and vitamin levels are at, sufficient levels, it has profound impact on how they function. And, sometimes it's omega-3, sometimes it's magnesium, sometimes it's a combination of, quite a few. We look at all the electrolytes when we do the hair tissue mineral analysis test and see where are they at and how can we boost that. And that's what is so beautiful about that supplement shake that I was telling you earlier, with such high dosages of all of the vitamins and minerals that we need in one shake, because they're getting that, and it's possibly for the first time. And because it's in a shake and it's liquid, the body doesn't have to work so hard to break it down and absorb it. So
I was going to ask you
right?
about that with supplements, because I have heard that capsules aren't as, sufficient as liquid vitamins and
Right.
okay.
And again, it depends on what the capsule is made out of as well, of course. And are they having it with food, before food? Like the timing of having capsules has an impact as well. But when it's just a liquid and, it's just going through the body, and the body barely has to work to break it down and absorb it. And so we've seen, working with autistic kids, significant improvement in a relatively short amount of time when we get kids using this particular shake and adding some other supplements that they need in terms of behavior. Taking kids that are completely like isolated at school, and when they do interact with others, it's from an anger or a negative space, and sometimes attacking or biting, some really severe cases, to having that child be able to completely integrate with their class and settle down, and the teacher calling the parents going, "This is a different child. What did you do?"
Yeah. No, I've actually had that call a couple times when I have, worked on these different protocols. So I really value this. And most of our kids are very picky, and a lot, I can't tell you how many kids I have met that really, I think they have 5 foods they'll eat, and pretty much half of it's pizza and
Right.
chicken nuggets and French fries. So,
And
I
again,
think
that
we
is so common.
yeah.
So common. And
Yeah.
part of it too is when our gut is out of balance and we have too much bad bacteria or yeast, they want to be fed that. They are triggering the brain to ask for that, right? Because those foods will very often be treated by the body as sugar, right? It's a quick hit energy spike and insulin spike, and those pathogens want that. And so when I work with people that are struggling with yeast and sugar, et cetera, and they don't understand why they have these cravings or why they only want to eat these foods, and they think it's them and they think they have no willpower, and really we go back to the gut, because it is the gut and those pathogens that are demanding that you feed them that way. So it's not the child's fault. They're listening to their body. Unfortunately, something we don't want is in there ruling it. And so we have to go in and eradicate that for them.
Oh, and that would really help us as parents, because we're struggling trying to get our kids to eat different things. And that also is, that would be wonderful. Now, you said, you're working on different protocols. So if you would recommend, because I know sometimes, especially me, I move a lot, and sometimes I'm doing a little bit here, doing a little bit there, and I'm making a little bit gains here and there, but most likely going through all at once in the right way with a protocol can make such a difference. So when,
Absolutely.
rather than, all right, I'll start having my child, because I see a lot of parents do this too. They hear certain mega probiotics to start taking, and then they're taking these probiotics, but then you're not dealing with the toxicity. And so I know for a lot of us, we hear different things and we start to pick and choose different things, but we're not doing it all together in an organized way where it is really helping the body to change and shift.
Right.
Now, how much, because that's one of the things too, I know your sessions and these tests and everything like that, how much would you say to go through a 12-week protocol?
In terms of the cost of
Would
the
have been,
protocol?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the protocol itself for the 12 weeks is $299 US.
Okay.
And then the Heal and Seal protocol, which comes after that for another 3 months, is about, I think it's $81 US a month. And
Okay.
the cleanse in between, that's about $100.
Okay.
And then my programs, I have different packages. So it depends what people want. So whether they want 4 sessions with me over the period of about 4 months, do they want 6 sessions over 6 months? Do they want 12 sessions over a year?
Okay.
So it ranges in price from $1,000 Canadian for the lowest to 5,000 Canadian for the full year. And
Okay.
that just depends, what is it that people want? What I don't do is I don't do a one-off and say, here's your lab,
Yeah.
go at it. And the reason I don't is back in my day when I was dealing with my own children's intolerance, this is pre-concussion when they were really little, and I found a naturopath after the doctor told me all little girls get tummy aches, she'll grow out of it. And I said, but why? I want to know why. And then that's me wanting to get to the root cause, which is funny when I look back, me coming to this path has been going on for 15 years or more. But when I went to the naturopath, we did the food sensitivity testing. I found out the results. And of course, they're both different, right? So now it's like, how many meals do I have to make in our house?
Yeah.
Which is difficult too. Then I was left 100% to my own devices. Don't feed her this, 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 this. Don't feed her this, 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 and this. And then I'm like, now what? And this is pre the days of even gluten-free being popularized and options more readily available and more recipes online. So I had to do all this research myself. And as a busy parent and in the corporate world, that was hard to find the time to do all of that. And I realized again, that gap is, it would have been so helpful if I could have had some recipes. It would have been so helpful if I could have had a little bit of help with the meal planning, and so that I knew I was on the right track. And I was able to do it because I wasn't the one suffering. So that did help. But when I work with clients who are suffering and trying to do this for themselves, they just don't have the energy, right? So I work with people on packages to guide them through, provide recipes, meal plans, shopping list, and there for support, because there's always questions, right? And you don't want to be left with questions and not able to ask them of anyone. And so that's where my the work that I do with people is very high level support. And I'm actually rebranding my company from Better Brain Health because people were missing the fact that the gut is the second to Your Guided Health Journey, because that's really what it is. And that's what differentiates the work of an integrative health practitioner to perhaps a naturopath, where it's just appointment by appointment by appointment. And different level
and we need that. Like we really do. I will tell you, any mom of a child that has autism spends, I would say, 5 to 50 hours a week researching. No, we really do. We're always trying to, we spend so much time researching. We're always trying to find what can help our kids. And what you were saying, to me, that is such a great investment, because literally you're wiping the slate clean, and you're preventing, by treating that source, you're preventing years of energy just thinking about how do I help my kids and what are the next issues. And
exactly.
And, the looking at the whole picture, it's so worth it. I thought you were going to say it was more, especially with all the tests. It really, with all of the things that we're trying. And even when you said the cost of supplements, I'm like, oh, that's nothing. I think I'm well over that in vitamins and stuff and probiotics that I already do. So no, I think that's such a great investment, and just on so many levels, just one for the child, but for you as a parent who's struggling with a lot of these behaviors and challenges.
Right. And so just back to you saying the cost of the test, because you hadn't specifically said that, and neither did I, but in my $1,000 package, the client pays for the tests themselves. In my middle package, they get the 2 tests, which are the food sensitivity and the urine sample one, which is looking at what's going on inside the gut. And then in the $5,000 package, they're getting 5 tests, which if we're working with a child, we might tweak that a little bit, and maybe we want to put the stool test in rather than doing the hormone test, for instance. And
Okay.
there might be a slight, to do that, there might be a slight tweak on the price, but yeah, there's some really great options within those packages for getting the testing done and understanding what's truly going on inside the gut. And then I just want to talk about the healing protocol a little bit, because what we offer, and this has all been created by a naturopathic doctor who struggled himself for years from the age of 17 to about 27 with a number of different really debilitating diseases, and being told by mainstream medicine that, sorry, you just got bad genes and you're going to be sick for the rest of your life, right? And he healed himself. And he went out on a mission to discover, well, Western medicine is completely failing me. What's the best medicine around the world? Is it Ayurvedic? Is it traditional Chinese? What does orthomolecular medicine, which is the study of herbs and natural supplements, how can that help me, etc.? And through his years of study, he now takes all of this. He's realized there is no one perfect type of medicine, but there are great things within each of them. And so he creates protocols using all of this. So there might be some Chinese traditional herbs in it. There might be some Ayurvedic herbs in it, and his understanding of overall orthomolecular medicine. And then they only become a protocol when in his practice, they've worked 99 out of 100 times. And
wow.
And the reason it
I
doesn't
don't even
work,
think any prescriptions. I think of what it's like 60 or if like,
maybe.
wow.
Yeah. And he works out of Boston, and he has, a practice of 250,000 clients that he's been able to work with and develop these protocols. And his practice is so busy, he just couldn't keep up. Like, he had a year-long wait list. He's like, how do I reach more people? So then he created the Integrative Health Practitioner program and trains integrative health practitioners to do these labs, read the labs, and then follow the protocols in helping more people get the help that they need. And I want to say, in the 90 or the one time it doesn't work is either because the person didn't follow the protocol properly, or they just needed just that little bit more time. So maybe they needed, rather than 12 weeks, maybe they needed 16 weeks for the degree of, pathogens that they had in their body. But what this protocol does that's different, particularly to big pharma, but perhaps anything else people have tried, if they have tried healing the gut, is that those pathogens that are there causing part of the problem, like you, they've chosen you as their host. And they want to stay. You might not feel good with them inside you, but they are happy and they're very clever. So they don't want you to get rid of them. And they build a little protective cover around them in your gut. And I think of it as their little igloo or their little home. And that protective cover prevents mainstream or any kind of medicine getting to them to try and kill them off. So first we have to break down this cover. It's called a biofilm. So we use a natural biofilm disruptor to poke holes in it so that the antimicrobial that's going to kill them can get through and actually start killing them off. And at the same time, in month 1, we're using a probiotic that's just a very calming probiotic. It's not aggressive in any way, and it's a placeholder, because as the bad bacteria or yeast is dying off, it creates gaps in your gut. And we want to have this placeholder bacteria go in and take that spot, rather than having a more aggressive bad bacteria take over. And, the problem just perpetuates itself, right? And then in month 2, we do the same idea again. We have the biofilm disruptor, we have the antimicrobial, and we have another probiotic, but we change them because, again, they can build immunity to what we're doing. So we have to change up the products. And in month 3, we do the same thing again, but the probiotic we're putting in is now the good, healthy bacteria that we want, the balanced bacteria that we want in your gut, as it's now, 3 months down and it's healing and it can hold on to that. And then we do the cleanse, and then we start to do the heal and seal.
Wow. And I really thank you for explaining that, because I don't know if all of us, we know we have to have healthy bacteria, but we don't quite understand how that bad bacteria really is latching on. And I think a lot of us, I know many of the kids I worked with, they had so many ear infections. My son had 6 ear infections from age 6 months to a year. That did him in. I mean, the poor guy's gut is just, it just breaks my heart. But, with this, there's also a thing called, I don't know if you're familiar with the GAPS diet.
I'm not.
It's the GAPS diet is one that's very common in helping parents and children with different developmental delays, and it is like healing the gut, but they use where you're literally broth, and it's all food based.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing I love about yours is you do bring that nutritional piece in, but you're actually really getting in there and giving these herbs. I really, Chinese medicine to me, I dabbled in it while I was living in Canada, and I love seeing that snow in the background. It's just,
we got about 2 feet overnight.
Oh my.
Luckily, I live in Whistler, and we're all excited about the ski hill
Yes.
opening next weekend.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say 2 feet in November. Wow.
Yeah, it's early.
Yeah, no, but I was just gonna say, yeah, Chinese medicine and using those herbs and those natural things to help the body kick in. It's just, I love your protocol, and I'm so excited to have you share this for those people that do want to pursue this path, because not everyone, but I feel like if we don't bring this information to people and they don't know about it, then it's mainstream isn't offering this type
Right.
of support.
And that's my mission. That is truly my mission and passion in life, is to let people know there are other options and provide the information. And then each person can make their own decision about what's right for them. And at least they know there is another way that they can look into. And I think that's so important. And when I work with my clients, it's not just the protocol. We're looking at stress levels. We're looking at rest. We're looking at their gut health, their brain health, their overall body health, because we are one whole being and we're all interconnected, right? So there's a huge educational piece that they get as they go through these sessions with me, which they have for life. And it's a shame it's not coming through our educational system and through our public health system, but it isn't. And so it's really important to me to be able to share this information and let people know.
Yeah, that is the one thing that boggles my mind, is that we are not, our brain and body, that's carrying us through our whole life, but yet no one teaches us how to take care of it and what it needs. It just boggles my mind why this is not a key part of education. In mental health too, anyway. That's my soapbox. I could talk about that all day.
I hear you. Yeah. And that's what got me started on this journey. When like I said, I got let go and I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I find this company that specialized in supplementation for the brain. And I went, oh my God, no one ever taught me how to look after my brain. I have to do something different, or it likes different foods to what I may be eating. And Alzheimer's and dementia is nearly epidemic. Well, what if the world knew this, right? And
Alzheimer's, they're linking that to metals. So there are some studies. So that's another key part, is if you're helping to get rid of that stuff, and you're creating a digestive system that can run better and work to get rid of this stuff. It's helping on so many different levels. Wow.
Absolutely.
Now, I wanted to talk about too the sleep part and the stress part, because that is another key component that I really focus on, because especially sleep, a lot of our kids aren't sleeping very well, and they're wired, and that, the whole deregulation at night, and that it's very challenging. And then parents aren't sleeping because they're only getting their time when the kids are sleeping. So they're trying to stay up just to have time for themselves, and then they're getting less sleep.
Or get things done that they need to get done.
Get things done, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but I do feel, if you could just explain to us a little bit, because I feel it's so important to sleep, because otherwise, when do we rest in the day? We never,
Right.
you know, our nervous system needs that balance between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, that rest and digest and, well, fight or flight, but, you know, go.
Yes.
And it's all day, we're right up here and moving, going, and we never stop to rest and digest, except for when we sleep. And then if we're getting less sleep, it's less time for that body to balance back out. So, you know, what could you tell us about sleep and, you know, what you found about sleep, and give us a little bit more motivation and understand that impact when we don't get enough sleep?
Yeah. So again, sleep is something that is just assumed we know how to do because as babies we're born and we can sleep, but we've never been taught how to optimize our sleep. And I actually have an online course that's called 6 Steps to Better Sleep, to just give people the steps that they need in order to optimize their sleep. So first of all, as human beings, we are supposed to sleep at night and be awake during the day. We are diurnal, not nocturnal.
Mhm.
And midnight means middle of the night, not after midnight I start my sleep, right? And again, the human body evolves so slowly over time. So if we go back to our hunter-gatherer days, when did they go to sleep? Well, they went to sleep when it was dark because they didn't have any light or electricity, and they woke up at dawn, right? We've shifted our hours of sleep fairly significantly, but our hormones haven't. So our cortisol and melatonin are like opposite hormones, for want of another term. And when we need our cortisol low at bedtime, and we need our melatonin to be on the rise. And the ideal time for sleep, and I'm talking adults, not kids, is between 10 and 11 p.m. and certainly no later than 11 p.m. But how many people out there are getting to bed every single night later than that and potentially not getting the full 7 to 9 hours that the body needs for rejuvenation and detoxification? The body and brain also detox overnight. And if we're not allowing it enough time to do that, then we're going to again struggle to get rid of toxins out of the body. And if we eat dinner too close to bedtime and it's not fully digested, the body's still in digestion state at bedtime, and detoxification can't start until after digestion is finished. So we want to be eating dinner 2 to 3 hours before bed, so there's enough time for digestion to occur. So when we go to sleep, we can go straight into detox mode.
So the snack before bed for kids obviously is off the table.
I would have it be something that is largely pre-digested and easy for the body to digest. So it needs to be something that's blended, or a soup, or, not something that's going to be
Yeah,
hard.
I never give my kids anything after dinner. I never do. But I know some parents who give their kids yogurt right before bed, and I'm like, oh my God, the sugar and the
Sugar
dairy to
and then the
digest that.
dairy. Yeah. And I mean, it is easier to digest because it's kind of a liquid already. But if that child is intolerant to dairy, that's going to be a problem. And then, yes, what is the sugar content of that yogurt? And the sugar is now causing insulin spikes, which is creating energy, and we're trying to get them to sleep.
Yeah.
So that's one piece of it. The other thing too is, interestingly, like every single day as we go about our day, we are incurring very, very mild brain damage. And then the restorative phase of our sleep heals that overnight. But again, if we're not getting enough sleep, the body doesn't get the opportunity to heal what it needs to heal from what we've done to ourselves during the day. When we don't get enough sleep, it actually breaks down the good bacteria in our gut. And that allows the bad bacteria to start taking over. And of course, when our gut is not happy, then our immune system is weakened. And we all know that. We all understand that if we're not getting enough sleep, we get run down and we can get sick. But what we're not recognizing is that that's happening because of this imbalance in our gut. And so sleep is absolutely critical. And in the 4 stages of sleep, each night that we go through, there is a piece of time where we are actually paralyzed. And that to me shows how important sleep is, because again, if we go back to our hunter-gatherer days, if we were paralyzed and we were under attack where we can't do anything, right? So for very short amounts of time, several times through the night, we are paralyzed for optimal rejuvenation. And it's that critical that even when we were living in an era where we could be under attack, the body still needed to do that and just did it in short doses several times over through the night.
Wow. And so if you're waking up several times a night, then you're getting off of that cycle. You're disrupting that healing cycle. And that,
Exactly.
wow, that's such a different perspective than I've heard before about sleep. That is so interesting. Wow.
So
Thank you.
oh, my pleasure. And so what we've done in this day and age, when I say we haven't been taught how to optimize our sleep, is we all have habits that are negatively impacting our sleep because we just don't know, right? So ever since the advent of light and electricity, our brain doesn't know when, it's time to get ready for bed because we don't have a natural dusk and then darkness. And so it's not telling the body to start producing melatonin. So we have to let the body know that we're getting ready for bed. And I teach people to create habits, and we often have bedtime routines for kids, but every single one of us should have a bedtime routine so that our brain knows now is the time that I need to start producing melatonin. Because if she's doing this, she's then going to do this, this, and this. So the brain recognizes that habit of 4 to 6 things. So with kids, it's quite easy. And, I think up until age 10, probably most kids have a bedtime routine. I think around 10 is when I stopped it with my kids because I didn't know this back then. And so it's like, eat dinner and then have a bath and then put on your pajamas and get into bed for a bedtime story. And that's fairly consistent every night. And we think we're doing it for compliance and because the kid knows the routine and they're more likely to be cooperative. Yeah. But we're actually helping their body know when to start producing melatonin so that they can get into a good restorative sleep. And we need to do that for ourselves as well. And if we've stopped doing it for our children, we need to teach them to do it for themselves if they're older. And, some of the other things that we can be doing is maybe turning off half the lights in the house so that it is a little bit more dusk light and making sure that we're not on screens. And if we are on screens, that we're blocking the blue light, either with glasses if it's watching TV or, using the night options on our phones and our iPads and installing free options on our computers so that it's a yellow light, which doesn't block melatonin production. Blue light actually blocks it. So if you're on a computer in the evening for 3 hours, say, and you're not blocking it in any way, it's that blue light, the body will not produce melatonin for another 90 minutes. So for half an hour for every hour you're on. So if it's 3 hours, that becomes 90 minutes.
Wow. So don't do your work and then go right back to, which is what I do often. I'm all right, just a little bit more work before I go to bed.
Right.
Wow. That's really interesting. And I also heard there was a person who had done a guest lecture at my son's school, and it was fascinating because he showed the brain waves. They did a study of teenagers playing video games, and they looked at the image of the brain, what the brain was doing, how it was firing, and the different activity. And then they kept the electrodes on as they slept and watched the brain waves. And they were having the same excitatory brain waves as they were sleeping as they did in the game. So it shows just how hard it is for the brain to shift. Yeah.
We have to teach it to be able to do that. Otherwise, it just doesn't know because all the natural signals that it had, we no longer offer it in our fast-paced, busy world with lots of screens and devices and lighting, et cetera, et cetera.
Nice. So bedtime routine for us. And I like that too, because I think for most of us, we get into bed, we do all our other stuff and then quickly take a shower, jump into bed. And then that's when we think of everything we have to do for the next day or that we didn't do. And I like that routine because that helps me too, maybe my mind to just say, okay, This is what we do now. This is what, and then this is the time we rest and sleep. I like that.
Yeah. And so in my course, I give a lot of tips, but some examples that I like to encourage people to do brain dumps, especially for people that wake up in the night and start thinking they can't get back to sleep because they're thinking about everything they have to do. But if we write it down before bed, and it's literally a brain dump, then it's all on paper. And the brain can be relaxed because it doesn't have to hold on to this anymore. It's on paper. You're going to see it the next morning. You're not going to forget anything. And your brain can relax into sleep. And if you do wake up in the middle of the night, it can go, oh, yeah, I wrote it all down. I'm good. Fall back asleep. That's one. Another one that I love to recommend is about gratitude, is to finish our day with 3 things that we're grateful for. And it's amazingly powerful in changing our view of the world. So often we get caught up in this didn't happen, or I didn't get that, or the negative, right? We want more and we're not getting it and we're frustrated. But if instead we look to what we can be grateful for in that day, just 3 things. Maybe it's that it was a beautiful sunny day. Maybe it was 2 feet of snow. Maybe it was that, you had a call from a friend that you hadn't talked to in a while. Maybe it was just that you're inside a warm home and comfortable in your bed, right? Write those things down, because then the brain gets to go to sleep happy instead of stressed about what you didn't get in the day or what didn't happen in the day. And as you do that over time, it trains your brain to look for the positive instead of focusing on the negative. And that also brings your physiology into a state of calm more often. So again, out of that stress state and into that parasympathetic nervous system rest and digest state more often. And 30 days of 3 things that you're grateful for will change your life. Truly.
I agree, because that's what I do. And it really has
So do I.
changed. And when I wake up, I start with gratitude, because instead of thinking what I have to do, I try to start of gratitude and then how I want to see my day. So I really try to switch the thinking, but I teach that as well. I love that. So I could talk to you forever, and I will definitely be doing more of these because we didn't even touch stress, which is a huge part of wellness and immune system. So we're going to save that for another time, because I want to make sure we have enough information because you gave so many great tips that I want parents to take these and run with them, because these really are key to our health too, because especially as parents, if we're not taking care of ourselves and we're struggling and we're coming from an empty bucket, it's so much harder to support our kids' needs. So sleep is something that's so important.
Absolutely. And I'll just end there with my favorite self-care reframe. And we can come back to this next time when we talk stress, but it's my mantra that I only learned about 3-4 years ago. And again, massive difference in my life. But self-care is the most selfless act, because it allows you to show up and give the world the best of you instead of what's left of you.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you so much. So all your information will be on our site, my website. So you can always, is the best way to reach you. I see you have the website as well, and by email and appointments. Like, what would be, if someone wanted to contact you, what is the best way?
So honestly, just go to my website, betterbrainhealth.info. I offer a complimentary 30-minute consult for everyone, because people just want to get to know me and, can I help them with their specific struggle, etc. And so you just click on the Work With Me tab and book that appointment at a convenient time for you. And if there aren't any appointments available because you're somewhere else in the world and just with, time differences like you and I then email me, let me know where you are and when you might be available, and I'll see what works for me and book in something outside of my normal hours.
Thank you so much, Melissa. This has been amazing for me, and I'm sure that you're really helping a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's my pleasure. And like I said, we just need to know that these options are available, and then each of us can make the right decision for ourselves. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to the next time.